Welcome, friends. Welcome to those who are joining us from all around Kirkcaldy. Welcome to those who join us from around the world. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are currently going through a summer series with the different churches in Kirkcaldy. So as you go through the next 5 weeks, I hope that you enjoy yourself as you explore what the different churches have to offer. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Here's a quiz for you. I'm going to play 3 themes. 2 are from TV programmes and 1 is a very well-known classic. There is 1 word that appears in each of the 3 titles. What is the word? Short snippet, here's the first one. Here's the second. Here's the last one. Answers on a postcard. Thank you.
This year's theme for the open services is the idea of being open. Whatever that word means, I'm currently walking through the high street of Kirkcaldy and people are setting up for their Friday markets, and it's a mixture. It's a mixture of opened and closed. It's a mixture of life, but also a little bit of death, isn't it? What is this new normal that we're speaking about, and how do we make ourselves open to it? Open. Open, open, open. One of the things that's really inspiring to me is a poem, and the lines of the poem is, we either have an open hand or a clenched fist, but we need to choose which one we have, because we meet the world with either the open hand or the clenched fist. So Anne is now going to read you a poem about encountering the world with either an open hand or a closed fist.
The open hand said to the closed fist, "Try this." The closed fist said, "Afraid." The open hand said, "You'll be part of everything." The closed fist replied, "Inside my cave I must yet cling." Open hand, are you clenched in anger? Closed fist, deep down it's more like hunger. The open hand implored, "You'll do yourself damage if you hit." The fist replied, "I'm not really aggressive. For protection I do this." The open hand then said, "I'm sad because you're blind. The lovely world you cannot see." The closed fist answered, "For right now my business is with me." The open hand, "But oh, if you could see as I, and parallel the sky." The closed fist, "My cavern is my safety and my need. I'm like a buried, deeply dreaming seed. Some day I'll open naturally. Can you wait and see? You are open now, my friend, but you were once like me."
The reading comes from Genesis chapter 25, verses 19 to 34. It's headed Jacob and Esau. This is the account of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew, I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright.
Here is a very simple scale. If I play it like this, you have a feeling of resolution. But if I play it like this, well, I can't leave it there because you need to hear. So in the music that you hear, music that resolves gives you a feeling of peace. But music that doesn't resolve, there is that tension. I'll leave you with this. No, I won't.
Richard explained so beautifully in music how you can have these notes that build tension. They create a dissonance. And they're looking within them for something to resolve it. They're looking for that next note that will resolve the whole thing. And when I hear music like that, it creates a tension within me. I look for the next note to resolve. I'm waiting for the next note to resolve the tension. Good musicians play on that. Good musicians bring audiences in and they create dissonance, and then at the right time they resolve. Good musicians know what the audience needs. Often our lives are like that scale. Our lives have a notes, and as we play them, they start to create a bit more dissonance. And we keep looking for that note. We have that tension within us that looks for something to resolve it. Looks for that note that will make everything okay. Looks for that note that will give us peace. And so we go on for our whole lives looking for the next note and the next note. And we actually just find that the next note just creates more dissonance and more dissonance. And it's almost like we never get to that note that resolves. And so we develop these ways of coping, ways of searching for the next note. And you see them all around. People in our society are constantly looking for ways to resolve the dissonance that's within them. Some of us, we go shopping. Others of us, we seek relationships. Some of us, we work hard. We are addicted to proving ourselves. There's so many addictions. And so we live with an addiction of looking for the next thing. And if we're honest, those addictions are just insecurities. Our insecurities are our addictions lived out. And so I think that we can become addicted to the next thing, the next note, looking for that note that will give us wholeness and healing, looking for the next thing that will open us or resolve the tension that we find deep within ourselves. And we can become addicted to that. In my own life, I've recently just started asking the question about how do I embrace the new? How am I open to the new thing? How do I have open hands for the next thing and not a clenched fist? How do I embrace the next thing and not use it as an attempt to hide from the brokenness that this moment is trying to teach me? We can run away from the things that hurt. And so it's easy to embrace the new. It's easy to be open to the new. But that's a form of denial, isn't it? In the book of Genesis, it's a catalog for me when I read it of how people are constantly searching for that note to resolve. They have this tremendous dissonance. It starts with Adam and Eve. They make a mistake and instead of dealing with it outside of the garden, they pass it on to Cain and Abel. And from Cain and Abel, we just see it just gets destructive and more destructive and more destructive. So God says, I'm basically going to push the reset button and we're going to send a flood. And so we get Noah, the story of Noah. And even then, God discovers in the story that the reset button doesn't work. Because unless you deal with something at its source, the brokenness, it's just more dissonance upon more dissonance upon more dissonance. Each generation is almost like a note that creates more dissonance than the note before it. And then you get the story a little bit later of Abram and Sarai. Now, this story is heart-wrenching. Abraham is this venerated figure in the three major faiths of the world, but let's be honest, he wasn't exactly a saint, was he? He sells his wife as basically a sex slave to save his own skin. He has this child with one of his servants, Ishmael is the child's name. And then when he has another child with his wife, Isaac, he sends Ishmael and Hagar, the mother, into the desert to die. He sends his child into the desert to die. And then Isaac, he wants to sacrifice him. He thinks God's telling him to go sacrifice his child. The ancient Hebrew rabbis believed that the reason Sarah died was because she found out what Abraham was going to do to Isaac. And it broke her heart so much that she died. And so we see in Genesis, one generation's sin goes throughout. It starts with Adam and Eve, and all the destruction keeps going. All the dysfunction, all the dissonance just keeps going from one generation to the next, to the next. And even in the story that MORAG read today, you have the story of Rebecca. And Rebecca's pregnant. And she starts to realize something's wrong. There's something wrong with this child. And this was the days before there's ultrasound. And she knows that something's not right. That the destruction and the dissonance and the dysfunction that is in Abraham's life, or Isaac's life, her husband's life, is now within her womb. The hurt and the pain that she's seen in her husband's life has transformed into her own flesh and blood. And what does she do? What does she do? Well, she does the same thing that Isaac does. She buries her head in the sand. And instead of naming her children something that praises them and puts them on a new path, no, she names them Esau and Jacob. Esau being the accomplished one, and Jacob the follower. Basically, in English, she's saying one child is better than the other. Imagine you're naming your children, you discover you've got twins in your stomach or in your womb, and you're going to name your children, and you name the one amazing and the other one awful. What does that do to you? Imagine you as a sibling. You're a twin, and your sibling's called amazing, and you're called awful. How do you respond? How do you live from birth being labeled like that? And it's not Rebecca. It's the dysfunction that is around it. It's this dysfunction that is part of their family life. And in the story, we see that dysfunction played out, where Jacob is cooking some food, and his brother comes in from the field, and his brother's famished. And his brother says, "Can you give me some food?" And instead of just saying, "Yeah, here's some food, I can see you're hungry," well, he gets him to sell his birthright. And you got to ask the question, is like, why would you sell your birthright? Maybe you don't want it because you realize how dysfunctional it is. That you'd sell it over a bowl of food. And so this dysfunction that has started in the beginning is continued generation to generation, and it's now lived out in these two children's lives. The ancient Hebrews believed that the first book of the Bible was Exodus. And that book is about being in slavery. And Genesis is a book about how they got there. How it's like the precursor to how they got into slavery. And what they're trying to point out is, look how it's just passed from generation. Our dysfunction goes back and keeps going and going and going. I wonder if instead of going on to the next thing, instead of embracing the next generation and saying it's theirs to fix with or to deal with, that maybe one of these people in the story of Genesis might have stopped and said, hang on, there's so much dissonance here. There's so much hurt. There's so much pain. How do I stop this? How do I stop it from passing on to my children? How do I give them the best chance? Instead of passing on their pain and dissonance to the next generation, let's do the hard work of fixing it. Let's have a good ending. Let's have an ending that resolves. Let's not stick our heads in the sand. I wonder if they did this, how the story would have changed. I think Genesis is a template for our own lives. I think Genesis is a template about what happens within each one of us. That sometimes we have these moments in our lives that create tremendous amounts of pain. We have maybe something that happened to us or was done to us when we were young. Maybe it's someone who hurt you, somebody who said something about you. Maybe it's parents that placed unrealistic expectations of you. Maybe it's something you did that broke somebody else's heart and you can't forgive yourself for that. Whatever that is. And instead of dealing with it, you bury it in the sand and you say, I'm going to just bury it as deep as I can. Because if I bury it, it doesn't exist. If I bury it, then I'm not going to hurt anybody. If I bury it, well, it'll all go away. But this story is one that says if you bury it, it gets hurt or it hurts the next generation. It carries on. It goes on to the next phase of your life. The next thing might come through the door, but you're just going to carry it into that. You're going to carry your dysfunction, your hurt, your pain, whatever you buried. Don't think you left it behind because it comes with you. And it's hard to break it. It's hard to dig up these things in our lives, isn't it? It's hard to put full stops and say, you know what? A lot of bad things have happened, but I'm going to do the hard work of calling this out and fixing it. I don't want my dissonance to be passed on. I don't want it to go into the next generation, but I don't want to even go into the next moment of my life. I want to put a full stop here. And I want to start a new sentence. I want to welcome in the new. I want to be open. I want to be open to the new. But I want to do that as a way of not running away from the past. And so this is a story. This Genesis is an invitation to deal with that. To see how destructive it can be when we don't deal with the brokenness within us. We can either run away or we can embrace it. Friends, I'm convinced that this is the task of our lives, is to work towards finding resolution. To not sabotage the next moment of our lives. We do that. We know we do that. We sabotage the happiness that can come in the next moment because we've carried all that pain with us and we haven't dealt with it. An example of this could be maybe someone you loved broke your heart when you were younger, and now you struggle to trust this moment. So someone comes into your life and they want the best for you, but you just can't embrace the happiness and the joy that they bring because you can't trust them. And instead of just dealing with it and working your way through so you can accept this moment for what it is, you'd rather sabotage this moment. And this happens all the time. Genesis is an invitation and says, you and I can stop this. We can work on this. We can stop the brokenness so that it doesn't continue. That when the next moment comes through the door, we can be fully open to it. That we can fully embrace it. Not as a way to run away, but a way that resolves. But if the choice is ours. Do you come to something with the open hand or the clenched fist? So as you go from this place, may you find that your life can either be embraced with an open hand or a closed fist, and that life can be one of resolution and not dissonance. And the blessing of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit remain with you all, now and forever.